And we'll get started. All right, so hello everybody. My name is Jordan Beck, and I am the coordinator of the Office of Research Trainees here at UHN. For those of you who aren't familiar with the ORT, so very briefly, we are an office that supports trainees and postdocs here at UHN and through a variety of different projects. So things like professional and career development and skill building workshops. We're offering different funding opportunities for conferences. We have different drop-in sessions so we can connect with everyone in person. And the list could go on, but just a very brief high-level overview. But on the topic of career-related workshops, I'm so excited to welcome you all here today for today's career panel. So before we begin, I would like to start by acknowledging that there has been a UHN hospital on this land since 1829. For thousands of years, this has been the territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we are grateful for the opportunity to live and work here. To learn more about the land that you are currently located on, whether you're in Toronto or somewhere else, you can scan the QR code, the top QR code on the screen. And then to learn more about Canada's Indigenous history, I encourage you to follow the link through the QR code on the bottom of the screen. So I'll just give a couple moments to capture these links, and then we can move on to the panel. All right. So we are very lucky to be joined here today by 4 former UHN trainees and postdocs who have transitioned into their full-time careers into different sectors within UHN. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lorraine Chu, who is a grant specialist with the research grants team. We have Dr. Erno Weinhold, a licensing and commercialization professional with UHN commercialization. Christine Snidel, the Manager of Research Integrity and Responsible Conduct with the Research Quality Integration Team. And last but not least, Dr. Jonathan St. Germain, a staff scientist with the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. So we're going to begin today's discussion with a set of questions and discussion points so that we can get to know our panelists a bit more, learn about their training and postdoc experience, as well as and with that'll be followed up by an open Q&A discussion where you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions. Just a few housekeeping notes before we jump into the questions. So the recording today will be shared with all of you after the event. We do ask that you please remain muted and your video off just to conserve the internet so that everything hopefully runs nice and smoothly. If you have any questions, please do submit that via Slido, and I'll share that I'll share that in the chat right away. And then we do also ask that we maintain a respectful environment here today. Any disrespectful activity will not be tolerated and will result in removal from today's event. So with that being said, I will stop sharing my slides and we'll jump into the questions. All right, so the first question, I guess, for everyone is, can you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit more about the training, the research that you've done at UHN, and what is your current role? I'll just kind of start cycling through on my screen. So maybe let's start with Lorraine.
Oh, thanks. So as Jordan has already introduced me kindly before, I am Lorraine. I am currently research grants specialist, part of the research grants team. So I guess I'll give a little bit of background of my education and training at UHN. I did my undergrad as well as master's and PhD at U of T with Dr. Melissa Radicic. And she is a TGH PI. So I'm not officially onboarded at UHN, but I did a lot of training at UHN, and I do consider that I was trained at UHN and had close collaborations as well with other UHN PIs. especially Dr. Ranky Lee at TGH. So after my training, I also did postdoc training at McMaster and also St. Michael's Hospital. And so now here I am. I joined UHN for 2 years now. Actually, today is my 2-year work anniversary. So
Great, thank you, and happy work anniversary.
thanks.
I guess next we'll move over to Christine.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Christine. So I did my master's at UHN. I did my master's in the lab of Elise Stanley at the Crumble Research Institute. And she was sort of retiring at the time that I was finishing up. And I, as I think many people do, had a little bit of an existential crisis. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up doing a regulatory affairs program at Humber College, and then did a quick sort of internship at a pharmaceutical company, but then found my way back to UHN. So I've been with the Research Quality Integration Department for 4 years now. So our department looks at all sorts of things, but one of the things we do, and the program that I currently manage, is the Research Integrity Program. So if you have questions, concerns, or anything about research best practices, concerns about image manipulation, all that kind of stuff, our department looks at that. So yeah, now I manage that program.
Erno? I think you're muted, Erno.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erno. I'm in a commercialization group at UHN. I'm originally from the Netherlands. That's where I did my graduate research. And after that, like many of you probably decide to come to Canada for follow-up research. In this case, in my case, I did my postdoctoral research in the lab of Dr. John Dick. Did a fairly long postdoc over there, almost like 8 years. And then I moved on to work for 3 different startup companies. I started the laboratory facilities at Deep Genomics as a director over there. And then I joined 2 friends to start a CRISPR engineering company. Very briefly, bad plan, stopped it immediately. And then I did a really weird thing. I became the COO of a cannabis company. At that moment, cannabis health was one of the biggest things. And we're trying to see if we could do something over there. That whole field imploded. And at that point, I had to figure out what I want to do. And I saw this opportunity at UHN in this group, in the commercialization group, and specifically for Princess Margaret, to trying to commercialize like any technologies, drugs, treatments for cancer. So here I am.
And John?
Hello, I'm John. I am located on the 9th floor of the PMCRT, affiliated with the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. And I first stepped foot in this place, in this lab in 2006, because that's when I started my PhD, which wasn't with UHN, it was with Sick Kids, because at the time, the lab I was with, Dr. Mike Moran, he's affiliated with Sick Kids, but we were a mass spec lab, and so all the mass specs were here. It was cross affiliation. It was all very confusing. And my Sick Kids, my UHN, where am I? Turns out I was with the Sick Kids Institute on a UHN floor. That was at the time when Sick Kids also had floors before they built the new building. Anyways, did my PhD, learned some mass spec, and then I got a job and left Toronto and went to industry for a few years in Montreal. And then eventually I was recruited back about 8 years ago. And then I stepped foot again in the exact same lab I was in, but this time it was a UHN lab, UHN floor. So I always came back physically to the same place, and I've been here ever since. So I came back as a postdoc, and then they decided to keep me. And so here I am.
Great, thank you. So kind of sticking along the line of still with your training postdoc experience, was there anything that helped is there like a moment or anything that kind of stands out in your training and postdoc experience that really helped you succeed and set you up for success in your current roles and careers? Maybe I'll start with Christine.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely. I actually was just kind of reminiscing about how I got to where I am. And I actually came to one of these events when I was in my master's, and someone was talking about they were working in regulatory affairs in industry. And I thought that that seemed interesting, and I looked into it a little bit more. And that's how I got to that college program. But sort of more generally, I'd say, I mean, UHN is just a great institution and there's so much going on. So you get exposed to a lot of different things. And I think kind of that exposure to lots of different things and being in a rigorous lab has really kind of set me up for success in this role. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, great. Great.
And
Lorraine?
maybe
Oh, yeah, please. No, please jump
bounce
in.
off on what Christine just said. So I think that's a good point. UHN being first so big and so present in downtown, especially. And so it's such a hub, so central. It allows for so much interaction, and not only within UHN, but cross institutions. So I think that's extremely valuable because you can talk to so many people, get so many people's perspectives, in addition to just what UHN offers as far as possibilities. But it's also just being in this very nurturing environment it's so conducive to interaction.
Absolutely. No, that's I think that's one of the coolest things. I didn't do my training at UHN, but I think having just such a huge network of people around, it's so for collaborations and knowledge, all the knowledge sharing, it's such a cool thing. So maybe I'll pass this one over to now Lorraine.
Oh, sure.
Anything to add?
So I definitely agree with everything that has been said already. I also want to add, I guess I didn't describe what my job is really at UHN. So what I do right now is basically making sure that all our research applications that we send to external funding opportunities, that we make sure that the applications comply with funder and also UHN requirements. So that's my main job, and how my education prepares for kind of led me to this is as like a postdoc or like even a graduate student, I was involved in various things like writing papers or writing grants, or even like the littlest tasks as ordering things. And that kind of prepared me for how to prepare a grant, what to include in as part of like research applications. And I think at the back of my head, I always had like UHN as a workplace for me. And I sometimes look at the careers website just to see what kind of jobs there are. And which then it was, to my surprise, I didn't even know this role exists. And I think it's an important thing to note that we have a lot of roles in UHN that maybe as a postdoc you're not aware of. And so it's interesting to just like look out for these kind of postings.
Absolutely. Like UHN is huge, so there's so many jobs in so many different areas that it's the possibilities sometimes seem endless because there's just so many different areas. It's so interesting. Erno, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, for me, it's like there's so many great scientists at UHN, and just by being at UHN, you pick up so many things. And I did a really long postdoc, so I got to interact and collaborate with a lot of different people, and therefore got a really broad knowledge in my case, cancer research. But not only on the biology aspect, but on all other aspects, also the technology aspects, how to do certain assays, what can we do if we have a certain problem. And for my first job, when I interviewed with Deep Genomics, they had no idea. And I had to tell them what to do and what can be done. And all of you coming to UHN have that knowledge. So by being here acquiring that knowledge, you have a huge advantage in finding jobs.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to deviate maybe slightly from the questions, since you're answering a lot of the questions already, which is amazing. So we're able to kind of hit different topic areas already. Something that I've heard before with colleagues from the lab that I came from in Winnipeg was just that transitioning from being a grad student working at can be difficult, and transitioning into like your first full-time career. Was there anything, how did you manage that transition from a trainee to into your career? Does anybody want to take a first swing at that question?
I mean, one thing I remember from my grad school days is how the now what, or what do I do next question, right? Because it's not always, as we can see here just by the panel that we have today, it's not just one path. It's not like you go to engineering school and you're going to be an engineer, or you go to medical school, get a doctor. So there's this unknown, there's this flying without a chute feeling sometimes that you get, just maybe not in your early years because you got a long time, you think, or it feels like you have a long time ahead of you, but when you get towards the end of those degrees, then you're like, oh, what's next, right? So on one hand, it can be exhilarating because the world's your oyster, you can go anywhere, there's a lot of possibilities, but on the other, the unknown can be scary sometimes, right? So it's a matter of trusting yourself, but trusting the process, but also you also have to have some kind of like a drive to, a go-getter kind of attitude, right? And with it, keeping an open mind and to open possibilities. You might have a plan, but something sometimes can come in front of you and say, oh, I didn't even think of that. Here's an opportunity. Maybe I'll try it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think just building off of that, and also something Lorraine said earlier, I think there's a lot of kind of options out there that you're not aware of. Like similar to Lorraine, I didn't know that this job existed when I was at UHN. So I think coming to panels like this, like Lorraine said, kind of looking at the UHN posting board, even if those aren't the jobs that you're applying for, it can give you an idea of the kind of things that you might be interested in. And then you can look at UHN and also more broadly. But yeah, that whole, like there's so much, which is great, but can also feel intimidating. So I think trying to get familiar with what sort of jobs are out there and kind of then figure out which of those you might be interested in.
Absolutely. I think that's great advice. There's again, like with UHN being so huge, there's just like so many things to do. So it's always cool to keep on top of all the different opportunities and learn about that.
Maybe I can
yeah,
chime in
please.
here as well. What I found is when I left UHN, I had that same feeling. Now what? What am I going to do? I had no idea. I took some time off, did other things in life than work. I was fortunate enough that I was able to do that. But then at some point, I was looking for jobs again, and you're looking, and it's like, I may like this, I may like that. My advice is apply to as many positions as possible and go talk with the people. Talk with the people who are offering the job and ask lots of questions. And maybe think that immediately you think like, this is not my thing. Or you may be completely surprised. It's like, this actually sounds really interesting. In case for that cannabis company, when they started talking to me, I was recruited for that. At first, they're like, the guys are crazy. Like, I'm like, why would I even entertain this? But then I started talking with them, like, oh, maybe there is something over there. Let's do this. But also, often they, if in the case if you apply with companies, they have more stuff out there that they're not advertising, and you only find out by talking with them. They may have a position they don't want to advertise yet. And when you speak with them, and they may think this person is actually really good for that position. Let's propose that instead of the original position. So just don't limit yourself in thinking this position is not for me, this position is too high. If you think you like the position, go for it. If you like the company, go for it, because there may be other positions that are actually better suited for you, and you always have a chance.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to bounce off that as well. I think when I was just finished with my postdoc and just thinking of my career, I always had like this limitation of, because I had training in such a specific field, that I need to go on with this area and I can't do something else. That's not true at all. Because your PhD skills, your master skills, like everything that you trained for in your postdoc, it translates to a variety of job things that you can do. So don't be limited with what you think you can do or not do.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you for those really, really great answers. Just, I guess, kind of, excuse me, keeping on that line of kind of student kind of educational journey there. If you could go back in time, would there be any advice that you'd give yourself kind of at the beginning of your postdoc, beginning of your grad degree, and maybe even at the beginning of your careers, of how you're navigating life and all of that at those times? Does anybody want to take a first crack at that?
That's
I can go
go ahead.
if you want. I have been really fortunate throughout my academic career that I have lots of publications with high impact factors. Got me really far, but during my postdoc, things kind of went sideways. I tried to do really challenging projects that took a lot of time. Twice and 3 times in a row, they failed during my postdoc. I would suggest, if I look back to that, is go for the smaller wins, and try to get your things published as quickly as possible and move on to the next, instead of going for like, I need to have a science paper and I'm not submitting my stuff before I have a science paper. No, go for something lower and immediately just, continue your research, your follow-up research in other directions.
Great. Lorraine, do you have anything else you want to, or I saw John pull off his mic, his mute. Do you want to?
Yeah,
add?
that's a hindsight is a 2020 kind of question, right? Like looking
Right.
back, yeah. I remember, that makes me think, I remember when I was wrapping up my PhD, I had a lot of conversations with my current boss, and I was hesitating. I was having the dilemma, or because I had an industry offer, and my current boss here, I remember one time over a beer, it was like, I think you should stick around, stay with UHN, do a postdoc, you'll be better trained. Then you can, you can look. Like, went back and forth. I ended up trying it. I went to industry right away after the PhD, before my postdoc, and then so went to Montreal, and then eventually came back here. So he likes to tease me about that one. He likes to say he was right about that one. So in hindsight, who wants to pack and move and unpack and repack and move back? Would have been easier to just stay. But that being said, my comeback is always, yes, true, could have saved some time maybe, but it's an experience I wouldn't have lived, right? And I don't know what kind of a worker, professional employee I would be today, what kind of without that experience as well, because it's not like it was wasted. So it's definitely not a straight line. It never is. But it's a matter of, now hindsight 2020, looking back, would you really want it to be a straight line? Might be faster. Would it be as interesting? I don't know. We'll never get the answer, but it's just something to, regrets. What's the use? But definitely there's general rules that you can follow that, don't go against your gut. Don't, if it doesn't feel right, all that kind of stuff. But for the rest of it, if you want to try the adventure, why not?
So absolutely. That was some similar advice that I received from my master's advisor, was just trying to navigate through the weeds and trying to figure out what's next. And she would always just tell me, just explore, have fun, try something new. And so I think that's a fantastic advice.
Yeah, and I think the idea of thinking back on things and, oh, that could have been a straighter line. Oh, I mean, aside from having to pack and move, which is obviously terrible, but the kind of the experience, you don't know that you would even ended up where you are if you hadn't kind of done that and got that experience from there. So I think it's easy to look back and say, oh, I wasted my time doing this, or oh, I wasted my time doing that, but it's not wasted just because it's not necessarily in a straight line to where you want to end up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, sticking to that point, like I agree, like nothing is wasted and nothing is, everything is straight path, it will be quite boring, in my opinion. So I think, like I said before, everything that you did before in your PhD training or postdoc, everything counts. So like sometimes you feel like really tired, like as a postdoc, I feel tired like managing the lab activities, but nothing is to waste, because it's your knowledge and it sticks with you and it's translatable to any job. So
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. I think we're kind of hitting in terms of the questions that I had prepared for the discussion. Everyone's answers are so great that it's kind of tackled the different questions that I've planned to ask. So maybe if there's no objections, maybe we move over a little bit early to the Q&A session and add a couple extra minutes to that. So just looking a bit over at the Slido. So again, if you have any questions for the Q&A session, can you please submit those to Slido? I'm seeing a lot of them coming in already, so which is wonderful. So I'll start kind of going through those. But there's some questions that I'm seeing kind of a trend in some of the questions pertaining more to your role, John. Can you explain a little bit more, what does it mean to be like a scientist at UHN versus like perhaps like what does your role look like? What is it? And yeah, if you can explain more about your role. Oh, you're muted, John.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm a mass spectrometrist by training. And so I operate the mass spectrometry instruments for Dr. Brian Rott. And so what we do is, of course, our own research, but do a lot of collaborative work, both within UHN and outside with other institutes from Toronto, Canada, US, Europe, everywhere. So a lot of collaborative work, but I was recruited here for this specific expertise of proteomics and mass spectrometry. And so that's one thing. So one thing I was thinking about before this preparing for this panel, and think about, oh, you know, giving advice and answering questions is it's always a bit tricky, because you know everyone's path is so personal and everything. So you try to think about general applicable stuff that works for the most people, because and there's not too many of those, because like I said, it's you know, we all have our own path, our own interests, our own, you know, backgrounds and stuff like that. But one thing that did help me was, you know, looking for, and that was one thing I kind of figured out early on, was, okay, looking for a marketable skill. So something that's you know, in demand, but also a very like a niche kind of thing. So it becomes kind of your identity, right? So you want to keep a broad view of this, want to be versatile, but also develop these marketable skills that will, you know, really help you find work out there.
Great, thank you. So that's some other kind of line of questions that's coming through, kind of revolving around just kind of the application process. How did you find the job that you're currently in? Kind of some of how did that process of finding and securing the job looked like. Does anybody have want to share their experiences about applying for their job at UHN and how you went about finding it? Maybe Lorraine, do you want to take a start at
Sure.
this one?
Sure. So it was back during the pandemic. I was still a postdoc at St. Michael's Hospital with Dr. Stephen Waldman, and I was managing a lab, but it was kind of slow in lab activities due to the pandemic. So I was looking at UHN jobs in the career website, like I said. I came across the grants officer position at research grants team, and it fits what I want to do. Um, I was trying to move away from kind of like daily lab work to kind of more just managing or assisting research at UHN. Um, and then I applied and I was contacted to apply to a new position, actually, the grant specialist position by my manager. And then after that, so actually the process between me applying for the grants officer job to actually hearing from my manager about the new position was around a few months. And then after that, it was quickly moving on to an interview and then also an evaluation. So I had to complete a kind of like a evaluation on my skills in reviewing applications. And then after that, it moved quickly forward to me being hired at UHN.
Awesome. Thank you. Christine?
Yeah, so I actually found out about this job from a friend of mine from grad school. So one of my friends from grad school who I kind of been in the lab with was working for Stride, which is another research support service department. And just kind of being around the office, he knew that Katie, who's my director, my boss, was looking for someone. And it was sort of like a quality compliance, but also research academic focused position. So he told me about it, and then I thought that sounded quite interesting. So I reached out to Katie and applied. And then my actual interview process was an interview, and then I had to do kind of a presentation about some topics. And then like all the stuff through HR. I can't remember all of that, but yeah, it was great because it was someone who I knew. So, he could vouch for the position and then on my end, and then he could also vouch for me on kind of UHN's end. And it worked out really well. So
Great. That's great. Erno?
Yes. So when I was working for that cannabis company, which was a terrible idea, and then I had to like roll up the whole company, I was like, what am I going to do next? And for me, it was like I have this fascination for research, for experiments, but I don't want to do it myself anymore. I'm more interested in, the general aspects of biotech, business development. So I was looking for these kind of jobs. But out of curiosity, I also just checked the UHN website, career website. It's like, say, what's out there? Maybe there is something which is related to research, but not, you don't have to do research yourself anymore. And then I saw my current opportunity, my current job was listed over there. And then I applied, and then it went really fast because I already had the connection with UHN. I knew half of the Princess Margaret PIs already from before. And within a week, I had this job.
Great. And John?
Yeah, like from what I'm hearing, I don't think you can overstate the value of network and connections. But I mean, like, human connections, relationships that can really help, because when you build these relationships and maintain them over time, then it really helps you, for opportunities and for potential opportunities. On the other hand, like Erno presented two kind of options, right? Or I guess he combined both, like just went on the website, applied, And then once he was in, he knew a lot of people, so it was very helpful. So it's like a, so
Mhm.
you know, I also lived through both of these ways of going about it. My current work was based on, you know, connections, in the sense that there's people that I had met here during my PhD, you know, maintain relationships with, and then it really helps when I wanted to come back. But then when I went to industry, it was a bit like Erno said, just like clicking on a website, applying, and going in. But then even when you do that, once you're in there, you make new connections anyways, new relationships, and then I still have that network today that I still talk to, you know, exchange with. And so it's a very nice way of going through a professional life where, you know, you accumulate these solid relationships with good people that you maintain over time. They become friendships on it, right? And like that arise from the professional world. And I think that's an important point too. So valuable.
Absolutely. The networking, both on a personal and professional level it's so fulfilling. So it's very helpful in so many different aspects. So that's, I know when I was looking for this job, I found it through the UHN careers website. So it really can vary in terms of ways of finding and securing through talking with different people, through online searches. I can resonate with that in past roles, my current role. So it's such an important thing to do.
But that's the beauty of it, because even though you go through a website, after that, you know, it's like a snowball effect where you
Absolutely.
make relationships, and these
Yeah.
relationships foster, you know, it's just that's
Exactly.
the beauty of this whole thing.
It really is. Yeah. Another kind of lines of questions that I'm seeing is kind of going back to just kind of the day-to-day work in your jobs. So there's some questions kind of asking for some maybe a little bit more expansion on both what your team, Christine, the RQI team does, as well as the commercialization team, Erno. So if Christine, do you want to
Sure.
talk a bit more about your department, your team?
Yeah. So we're called Research Quality Integration, and we kind of have three sort of buckets of things that we do, I would say. So we do quality, which is a lot of sort of audit, site support, support for clinical, a lot of support for clinical research, really. It kind of falls into that category. So making sure that you're compliant with all the relevant policies and all that. And we're available for consults. You can always reach out to us if you have questions. I don't know if there's a way I can provide my email address for people to reach out, but
Yeah, we can share
great.
that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then we do a lot of risk management. So kind of helping different departments, helping different people manage risk at sort of the institutional level. Along with that comes, we are kind of responsible for overseeing the UHN's research policies. And then sort of what I mostly do is our integrity program. So again, we're available for kind of questions, consults. If you have any concerns or questions or just want to chat, things can be about, we get a lot of questions about kind of authorship. You know, how do you manage authorship disputes? You think you should be on a paper. You know, you don't feel like you're getting the appropriate credit. We also do sort of more data integrity stuff, image manipulation, all that kind of stuff. And it can really range from a quick question to kind of more involved, you know, formal complaints and, you know, formal inquiries and investigations into these issues. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers that question.
Great. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Erno, do you want to talk a bit
A
more about?
lot of
Sorry.
stuff happening in this area these days, Christine.
Yeah,
with,
it's
what
been
came
kind of a
out
hot
recently
topic.
with the AI and yeah.
Yeah, and all the Dana-Farber stuff. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the commercialization team is dealing a lot of different with a lot of different things. We kind of like jacks of all trades. But our main roles here is to get all the legal agreements in place for collaborations. Sometimes this can be done by the clinical trial group at UHN or the research grant group at UHN. But as soon as there is an industry partner, a company, a big pharma company, a biotech company, or even like some small companies or granting agents, then we get involved. And it often comes down to discussions about potential intellectual property that comes from the research. Who's going to own that? Who's going to do what with it? How are we going to commercialize it if something comes out? So we are dealing with like the majority of those requests coming from within UHN, but also from requests from outside. For example, currently we have a lot of AI companies that have all these great ideas and what they want to do, and they want to develop new drugs, new treatments, but they need patient data sets. So we have the data sets. So then we are, negotiating with these companies is like, what are you going to do, and what do we get out of this? And then I say what we get out, whatever we are able to do, feeds back into money for research. That's what our office is, our mandate is. So that is one thing, but the other thing, and that is the main reason why I joined this team, is we have so many great projects at UHN, and often they strand. They strand at a phase that that the researchers have no money or no desire to move it forward to a real product that like patients can benefit from. And we are there to recognize those rough diamonds and nurture them and try to get funding for them so we can make a bigger technology, a bigger product, and maybe license that to a Pfizer or a Johnson & Johnson, and they bring it to clinical trials, etc. And we are involved in all these different steps.
That's very interesting. Very interesting of the kind of work that happens too behind the scenes at UHN. That's really great. So another kind of line of questions that I'm seeing is kind of revolving around kind of back to that kind of career transition and kind of figuring out what to do after grad school, after your postdoc. So one question that is how did you manage that existential career crisis during your postdoc, master's, PhD? Does anybody want to take that one to start?
I can try.
Yeah, please.
Because it's a tough one. I mean, it's the central one, I think, right? I mean, it's always, like I mentioned earlier, there's no direct, clear, there's not always a direct, clear answer to that one. So I remember it, and it can be a bit, it can cause anxiety to a lot of people. Like, oh my God, I've been doing this so long. I'm so, I went to school for a very long time. I'm very specialized. What do I do with this now, right? But I think a lot of it is the mindset of just not getting overwhelmed by that, this unknown, the fear of the unknown. You have to trust that there's something out there, but be comfortable that you're not sure what it is yet. So you just gotta get out there and look, talk, try, and risk it. It's scary, right? I mean, no. When you're a postdoc, before the postdoc, you've been a PhD, and before that, you were a master's student. Before that, you were an undergrad. So you don't even know what money looks like, right? So it's like, where do I go now to make a living with a rewarding career? So it's a big thing. It's scary, but you have to trust in yourself that you've done the hard work. You've got the energy to go forward, and you just try it. Take a swing at everything that you can. But there's no direct answer. There's no you must do this and you go there and it will work. You have to get to a mindset where you're comfortable with that uncomfortable position.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can resonate with that too, just because, I mean, if you would have asked me probably during my master's, if I would have ended up living and working in Toronto, I probably would have said, no, you're crazy. Because it's just, you look around, you look at all the cool opportunities out there and just kind of say, why not? And here I am. So I think that's great advice. Does anybody have anything else to?
Because you got to keep just one more thing, because if you look at just if you play the numbers game, right? The number of postdocs that are produced for the number of lab spots that are available, it just doesn't add up, right? So you really have to open your mind to any possibility. And who knows? I mean, you know, I think most of us, when we started, if you did a postdoc, you know, you did a PhD before, probably what you were gunning for was, you know, PhD, postdoc, PI. That won't happen for everyone, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You might be surprised and find your niche somewhere else where you fit better than you would have, as with that canonical kind of destination, you know. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt, Jordan.
Sorry. Yeah, the only thing I would add to
great.
that, the only thing I would add to that is I think it's really helpful to talk to people who are going through the same thing you are, to talk to people who have maybe gone through the same thing you have and have ended up either somewhere conventional or somewhere non-conventional. Just because I think that that can really help with kind of the overwhelmingness of it all, because it can feel quite stressful, but kind of knowing that other people have gone through the same thing and they've ended up okay and you will also end up okay, I think is really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I went to a very similar thing. It's like I thought I was like on track to become a professor,
Mhm.
and that didn't work out. And then you're at that point, like, okay, now what? And throughout my career, I actually have had multiple of those moments, like I was not sure what to do. And in a couple of those cases, I just took a vacation. I just wanted to just like not think about anything, take some time for myself, get bored with doing nothing.
Mm.
So you're actually, when you're applying for jobs, you're actually ready to go for a job.
Mm.
But I also realize not everyone is in that fortunate position to take a considerable amount of time off because they can't afford it. But maybe at these moments, you know, take a job just for the money, temporary, while you figure out what you really want to do. But
I think that's a really good point, Erno, because I mean, like you say, even if it's not a vacation where you go on an island somewhere and drink daiquiri for a month, it can also just be go home and breathe and relax. And, you know, just like I was talking with the mindset earlier, and in fact, I think it's the same idea here. Vacation, take a breath, relax, and just, because the worst space you can get into is this zombie-like state where you're just going through the motion in a passive way, right? Oh, I did this. I did a master's, so I guess I'll do a PhD now. Oh, I did a PhD, so I guess I'll do a postdoc now. Oh, I did a postdoc. And then you're like, okay. So the worst space to be in is this passive zombie-like state of just going through the motion of life, right? So you have to take it like, so I think that's great advice. Take a step back wherever it is, however you do it. Take a step back so that you're, you know, a step back for a leap forward when you're ready to go, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I also want to add that, like, similarly to what you're saying, like, just take the like do a job for the money, like not in the same way, but for myself, I was just sticking with my postdoc position, and then I transitioned in the same lab as a research associate. Well, not really doing it for the money, but like I was actually passionate about the lab work, but looking to get out of lab work kind of at the same time. And at the same time, I was also doing side jobs like sessional instructor. So just trying different things at the same time that I'm able to. So I don't think you should be anxious about being in a position where you're trying to figure out your career, but you should try out different things that you could at the same time. And at the end, I came to this position at UHN, but I'm still connected in at a side project with my old supervisor with where I was working at St. Michael's Hospital. So it's not like you have to do one thing or the other. You can do something that for a job, a stable job, but you can also have a side project with your old supervisor as a side project. So it's not like you cut ties with your old lab just because you move on to other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
The only
there's so
thing I
many.
would add to that is so for the anxiety part, being anxious, I agree with the idea. I just don't think it's possible not to feel anxiety in this line of work. this it's impossible. I'd love to meet someone who's never felt anxious. But to your point, I agree. You have to let go of it. You have to, you know, understand it and let go of it and control it, because that's the only way you're really going to appreciate where you are and what you've done, despite the anxiety that it brings going through this motion of this career.
Yeah, you have to really turn the anxiety into kind of action in order to like move forward. Yeah.
Exactly right. Turn the anxiety into action. I love that. Yep.
That's a great quote. That's a great quote. Swing off. Well, you put that on a sticky note sometimes if when your days are getting hectic and all of that. That's a great, I think a great mantra to live by. There's still so many questions, and I'm sorry that we can't get through them all. There's just it's tons of really great questions. So hopefully I'm trying to hit as kind of as many different avenues as possible, but we're kind of slowly reaching to the end of our time. I do want to ask one last question for everybody. So, and the question is, what advice do you have for current UHN trainees, postdocs that are looking to transition into their careers at UHN? Is there anything maybe perhaps related to skills that they're maybe acquiring during their training postdoc, or anything that you think would be important to add? So any advice? Can I maybe pass that off to Erno to start?
That's a good one. The advice I can give is that, like, if you're looking at a career at UHN, you're already halfway in. You have like being at UHN, having your training over there, you're so far ahead about like anyone else who is applying for this position. And there are, you know, like, for example, if people are interested in a job at commercialization, just reach out to people you may know or people you don't know in the office, and just inquire about it, how it is to work over there. And I think everyone will be just more than happy to, you know, to talk with you a little bit and give you advice and what we like about our jobs, what we don't like, what you need to be prepared for, etc.
That's fantastic. Making those connections is, I think, really a theme that's resonated throughout today. Christine?
Yeah, honestly, I think my advice would be really similar to Erno's. I think, yeah, I think you can't really underestimate being kind of an internal candidate and having internal knowledge of how systems work, especially, I mean, for like jobs in research support services is very, very helpful because, you know, you're already kind of one step ahead. And then just reaching out, you know, I again just can't overemphasize the importance of connections, and feel free to, you know, you can just reach out to chat. And I think even just kind of building that connection, whether or not it goes anywhere, whether or not you even end up wanting to apply for a job, I think having those connections kind of all over and just building a positive impression will be really, really helpful if you're trying to apply for jobs at UHN.
Absolutely. Lorraine?
Yeah, I agree with everything. I think especially for our team at Research Grants, like if you're part of UHN, you already halfway there. You already know how it works. You need to send the application for review, and you know what we review for in terms of budget and stuff. So I think it's very easy if you're an internal applicant at UHN. So kind of just network with people you know, or just reach out to like any of the teams that you're aware of to see how you can transition into a career at UHN. I think it'll be easy, or just watch out for jobs at the career website as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excuse me. John?
Yeah, I mean, well, like the event today is organized by the Office of Research Trainees. So you're at an institute that has an Office of Research Trainees. So I think that's such a illustration of the resources that are available to you here. So there's an actual thing where they're here for you to help out, right? So you're just bathing in that type, just an example to say how you're bathing in that type of environment, right? So you have unlimited access to a whole institute, that represents several hospitals and all that stuff. So, I mean, you almost have to want to avoid, these resources, because you just otherwise just run into them, right? So, but just go out there, go ask questions, go talk to people. Nothing beats it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's all fantastic advice. And thank you for that shout out, John. Just to kind of echo that, the ORT is always here to support you as trainees and postdocs. So if there's anything that you ever need support with, please do reach out to us. If you want to continue this discussion in a different way regarding careers at UHN, we're happy to talk about our own experiences as well. So again, always happy to reach out and talk. But with that, for those that are remaining, so please join me in thanking our fantastic panel with a virtual round of applause. And thank you for taking your time out of your day to joining us today and providing us with some really great insights into your background and how you've gotten to where you are today in your careers. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, a copy of the recording will be sent to all the registrants, as well as there is a feedback survey that should automatically pop up after you leave the Zoom, as well it'll be sent around in a email following the event. So please take some time to fill that out. We always appreciate feedback. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of this the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.